Belly fat, muffin top, jelly belly, whatever you call it, we don't like it. No, we certainly don't. Hi, Danna and Robyn here with Lean Healthy Ageless and the co-authors of the Eat, Live, Thrive diet. And if you're a woman 45 plus looking to have your best health, your best vitality, your best body, no matter what your age, well, you're in the right spot. Today, we're going to discuss and share with you why women specifically, as we age, tend to put on more belly fat, and we're going to give you some solutions on how to burn it off. Well, the first one is too many processed and packaged foods that are loaded with sugars and high starches. You know that all those foods aren't good for you, but even beyond those processed foods, we look at what we call high glycemic foods. You might be eating all natural. Maybe you say, hey, I'm on a plant-based diet, or I only eat things the way God, grew them. And yet you could still have too high of a glycemic diet. Yes, many of the grains out there are very, very high in carbohydrate, and they're high glycemic carbohydrate. Wheat is very high, corn, rice. Many people have gone on the gluten-free craze, and yet at the same time, the substitutes that they're using in those foods are rice flour, corn flour. Those are very, very high starch, high glycemic. Many women don't realize from as early as 30 years old, our carbohydrate tolerance actually decreases. Our ability to utilize carbohydrates effectively and burn them off is not getting better, it's getting worse. And we need to address this as early as we can, not only to prevent the muffin top, to burn it off and so forth, but just to be healthier, because there's many other disease issues that come along with that belly fat. And things that people think are, again, healthy foods, which they are healthy, but in moderation. Even foods like fruits, potatoes, beans, and legumes are very, very high starch, high carbohydrate. Exactly. The average American woman probably eats 300 to 400 grams of total carbohydrates every day. Now, what does that equate to in calories? That's about 1,200 to 1,600 calories a day just in carbohydrate. It's too much. It may be the average, but it's one of the reasons why we have this epidemic of that muffin top madness. So what's the simple solution to this primary cause of belly fat? Well, obviously it is in reducing those high glycemic carbohydrates and sugars out of your diet. So today, if you just want to get started immediately, we want to encourage you to do what we call level 1 elimination of our Eat, Live, Thrive diet. And it is this simple. Simply eliminate all added sugar and all grains for several weeks. Now, this is a good first step to reduce the amount of high glycemic carbohydrates you're taking in. But not only that, not only will you start to lose weight because you're eating less high glycemic carbs, you're also going to reduce inflammation overall, you're going to have higher energy, and reduce your risk of other diseases. Another thing to do is to reduce the amount of fruit that you're taking in your diet. Try to limit yourself to 2 pieces of fruit per day, and if possible, make one of those servings berries, because berries are really low in sugar. And by the way, if you're going to eat a banana serving is 1/2 of a large or medium banana. That is about 15 grams of carbohydrate. Here's another little tip if you're a numbers kind of a person. You never want to eat more than about 30 grams of total carbohydrates within a 3-hour period. That will ensure the carbohydrates you are eating are being burned rather than stored as fat, because as our carbohydrate threshold drops, our ability to store those carbs as fat goes up. Another food to moderate would be foods like potatoes and beans and legumes. So if you're going to eat those in your diet, limit them. 1/2 cup is a serving size, and limit those foods to maybe 2 to 3 times a week. And I mean total. Now, if you're already reducing the sugar in your diet and keeping grains to a minimum, you may want to consider even notching up to level 2 or level 3 of our elimination phase of the Eat, Live, Thrive diet. The reason for this is we want to take a look at your total carbohydrate intake, but also food sensitivities, because those can often hold you back from losing weight all over your body, to include around the middle. One additional thing that you can modify in your diet is if you do drink alcohol, limit your intake to just 1 drink per day. And for the best results, just eliminate it altogether. So for all of these techniques we're talking about, keep in mind this is what you're going to be doing in the phase to melt off that excess body fat in general, and of course the muffin top especially. Once you melt that off, you can move into what we call a lifestyle phase where you can figure out which grains work for you, how much carbohydrate you can eat without storing it, and incorporate some of these foods back into your diet on a moderate basis. The second cause of this muffin top or jelly belly is leading a sedentary lifestyle. It really affects your overall health in general, and by making some changes in this area, you can see a pretty quick change in the belly fat starting to come off. Now, there's several things that are happening when you're sedentary. Number one, you're just not burning enough calories. You are not expending enough to burn what you're eating. Number two, as we age, our metabolism goes down. Why? Because we lose muscle mass. So we have to be stimulating our muscles on a regular basis in order to notch up our metabolism and get that burn going on. How often do we need to exercise? You might not want to hear this, but every day. I was just going to say, Danna, what is a sedentary lifestyle? It's a lifestyle where you're not moving and you're not doing really some sort of intentional exercise every day. I mean, if we lived on a farm, if you're a rancher,
or something like that, that's, you don't usually you're getting it for the most part. But unless you are being very intentional about daily exercise, daily movement.
There's no point in fine-tuning until you're getting the basics down. So we want to look at the three components of exercise, which are strength training, aerobic conditioning, as well as flexibility and stretching. Now, the strength training already mentioned, when you're working those muscles, you can be lifting weights, you can be doing resistance with bands, you can be using your body weight. You are going to stimulate these muscle fibers to grow. Now, most women aren't going to grow big muscles, but they are going to get more firmness, more tightness, and building at the microscopic level so that your metabolism is increased.
So a second component to exercise would be aerobic type activity, which is going to improve your cardiovascular health, will help burn fat, helps to stimulate the metabolism as well. We want you to see a half hour, 45 minutes, like hour exercise, hour of aerobic activity if you can build up to that. But if you've not been doing that, go for a 10-minute walk or a 15-minute walk. Maybe do that a couple times a day to build up to it. But it's really important to have that.
I do want to point out, from a pure physiology of fat burning, when you're doing aerobic activity, you're burning more fat for fuel than carbohydrate. So normally you're only burning 5 to 10% carbohydrate as fuel. When you start moving, big muscle activity, again, what Robyn said, walking, it can be any form of cardiovascular consistent activity. 15 minutes minimum or more really makes it aerobic. When you're doing that, the fat burning goes from about 5 to 10% to up to 50, 60%. And in 30 minutes, we tend to max out. And so if your workouts can get to that 30, 45 minutes plus, during that workout, you will be burning more percentage of fat. And that's just a goal to have. Start where you're at and try to get that aerobic activity in every day. Now, let's not forget one component that is not about burning calories, it's not about building muscle, but it is about health, and that's flexibility. So do consider adding a good stretch routine to your daily workout. The third thing we're addressing today that influences belly fat storage is hormone imbalance. Now, there are many hormones in our bodies. Our thyroid, insulin, cortisol, and our female and male hormones. All of these can play a role. Now, we don't always know what those are, and so it's really important to get tested annually so your medical team can help you balance them if necessary through bioidentical hormones or replacements.
Now, two of those hormones that Danna just mentioned, insulin and cortisol, can really be changed and affected by the lifestyle choices that you're making. Let's talk a little bit about insulin, because a lot of people don't understand what insulin is, what it does in the body, and what insulin resistance is. So let me just share with you in a nutshell what insulin is and what insulin resistance is. Our body, as we take in food, it wants to convert it to energy to use for fuel. Insulin plays a role in that. And it's a transporter. It takes all of the stuff that your body needs for energy and fuel, and it brings it to the cell, and I should say the cell that wants to use it for energy, and it says, open the door, I'm here, I've got all this fuel for you. Well, if your cell is insulin resistant, it's not going to open the door, and it's going to say, nope, I don't recognize you, and I'm not opening this door. So then insulin is saying, well, what am I going to do with all this stuff? I've got sugar and carbohydrate and all that. Well, guess who's going to open the door super readily for that insulin to store that food? Your fat cells. They're welcoming to the insulin. And so what is not used for energy and what was intended for energy gets stored as fat. And I also want to mention in this whole process, this is what can be a precursor to diabetes because everything's being converted to sugar for energy. And eventually it's going to go to fat, but your blood sugar rises because the insulin is not able to get it into the cells to utilize it for energy.
Now, it's interesting. Many experts say that as many as 50% of women over the age of 50 are insulin resistant on some level. This is a really important thing to address for general health and wellness, not to mention getting rid of the belly fat. And so, two of the ways we do that initially, we've already talked about. The diet, reducing your high glycemic foods, those excess carbohydrates and starchy processed foods and all that. And two, regular daily intentional exercise. Both will greatly influence your body's ability to be more insulin sensitive, more insulin receptive. Another way to improve insulin sensitivity and really notch up your metabolism is to incorporate intermittent fasting into your lifestyle. Now, in our Eat, Live, Thrive diet, we call it the ELT eating cycle because it's a little bit kinder and gentler approach to fasting. What we know is if we fast too intensely and our body isn't used to it, it actually increases our stress and our cortisol, which we're going to talk about in a moment, and kind of defeats the purpose. And so you want to enter into intermittent fasting very intentionally. And where we encourage you to start, if you've never done it, is with a 12-hour fast. That's very short. For example, you stop eating at 8 p.m. at night, you start again at 8 a.m. in the morning. That is actually a good practice for everybody every single day of the week, except for maybe special occasions. And then you slowly notch up 13 hours, 14 hours, maybe up to 16, and on occasion 18 hours, 2-3 times a week. This can really help your body utilize fuel more efficiently, improve insulin sensitivity, which is a good thing. We want no more resistance, we want sensitivity, and burn excess calories as well.
Now, another hormone that is impacting the belly fat is your cortisol. And cortisol is a stress hormone. So when we get stressed, we actually produce more cortisol, and it's a fat storing hormone.
And by the way, we're all under some level of stress all the time, physical, mental, and emotional. But even if you don't feel it, if you say, I don't feel stressed, doesn't mean you're not experiencing it, especially in this crazy time since 2020 and so many of the changes in our daily lives. There's a certain level of stress that we're all enduring all the time. So addressing our stress is super important.
Now, there's some ways that you can help reduce that cortisol in your body. I want to mention if you're over caffeinating yourself, you can really be increasing the amount of cortisol that you're producing. I'm not saying you have to go completely caffeine free, but many people are out there drinking pots of coffee and soda and a lot of it.
What we know is cortisol is highest in the morning when we get up. And so the truth of the matter is, it is the time of day we need caffeine the least. And cortisol is lower in the afternoon. And it is a great time for a midlife woman to have a little dose of caffeine. It can help energize you for the afternoon. It can help if you're going to have an afternoon or evening workout. So just be mindful of that and maybe give a try of shifting your caffeine to later in the day.
Of course, as well, the exercise is going to help with the reduction of cortisol production. And then also you need to be looking at, are you getting good, proper sleep? Because when you are not getting good sleep, your body is under stress, even though you may not think you're stressed. It is another impact on producing too much cortisol.
So what are some things you can do right now in addition to what we've already mentioned, the increased activity, shifting your caffeine intake, intermittent fasting? The last thing, especially when it comes to cortisol, is finding that inner peace. Meditating is actually an excellent way to bring down the stress. It's all about perspective. If you're a woman of faith like we are, we find comfort in the scriptures, going to something that tells us the truth about the bigger picture of life versus sometimes today's worries. And so really practicing having an intentional mindset to do the things physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually that bring peace to your life. Taking a moment and taking that deep breath and changing your focus. It says in Philippians 4 to be anxious for nothing, but instead, through prayer and with thanksgiving, let your requests be made known to God. And then we're given this spiritual promise that I don't think there's anything better for stress than is this. And the peace of God that surpasses all understanding will guard your hearts and minds in Christ Jesus. So if you're a woman of faith that believes the Bible to be true, there's a scripture that you can dwell on when you're feeling stressed that will reset your focus.
If you want to know more about burning off belly fat, make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel and click the little notification bell as well so that you can get informed when we release our next video in this series about burning belly fat.
In addition to all the lifestyle tips we've given you to help you conquer belly fat, our naturopath, Dr. Mark Stangler, is highly recommending a product by Life Extension called AMPK. It's a metabolic activator. AMPK is an enzyme found in every cell of your body, but the natural age-related decline in AMPK is a major cause of unwanted abdominal fat. And since studies show that increasing AMPK activity can actually encourage your cells to stop storing fat and start burning it instead for energy, this metabolic activator has two powerful ingredients that safely trigger AMPK and causes your body to start burning that unwanted fat, especially around your abdomen. We have this product now on our website and are offering you a special discount for first orders. Just click the link provided for more information.